This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure, who are here to make procurement simple, offering great value and quality for products and services, all for zero cost. And what business wouldn't want that? I am delighted that their support will now help keep this show accessible and free to listen to wherever you access your podcasts. Please get in touch with them for a chat. Just click on their link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Di Gwinnell, Group People and Culture Director at those fabulous hospitality disruptors, Edyn Group. Coming up on today's show, Di has a third-person identity crisis.
We spent quite a lot of time making sure that we were who we thought we were.
Phil questions the direction of the chat. Oh, that's not normal. And Di gives us a key life lesson.
Just you never want to be on the bunk below a drunk male.
All that and so much more as Di chats us through her story and journey to date. There's a lot to like in Di's journey. On the face of it, it's a story which appears quite straightforward, but it's another wonderful example of what can be achieved even if you don't have an early career plan. In amongst all that, and as you might expect, we also chat about some people stuff. So there's some lovely little takeaways for you too. A huge thank you to Di for sharing her story. And I, for one, are excited to see what Edyn get up to next. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe wherever you consume your podcasts. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Di Gwinnell. Hello, Di.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, working from home today, which is always a pleasure, isn't it? So all good.
Yes, very good. And where is home for you?
I'm in Portishead, just outside of Bristol.
Oh, there's a band called Portishead.
That's what everybody always says.
Sorry, I'm not being original then.
True. Yeah, this is true. And it's what we're still very proud of in Portishead.
Very good. And that's all there is. There's nothing else there.
yeah, pretty much. No, I mean, it's a nice community. We've got a marina, a bit of beach. If you put your sunglasses on, it looks sandy, but it's actually muddy because it's on the estuary. But yeah, no, it's a nice place to bring up family.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the north coast of that southwest tip. Is that
yes
where we are? Yes.
Yeah.
Right, got you. And you've got, bless you, it must be cold where you are because you've got a big fluffy jumper on.
Yeah, I'm just being tight with the heating, possibly.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, no, I mean it's a foggy day today. Don't know if it's the same way. Where are you at the moment?
No, I have the sun shining pretty much nearly in my eyes. It's a beautiful day here. Sorry to say.
Nice.
But there we are. We're 1 minute 20 and into the weather straight away.
I'm very British.
I can't believe this happens every time. Like I don't even put it on an agenda point to talk about, but in any case, it is what it is. So, for the uninformed out there, please tell the world who you are and what you do.
Okay, so yes, I am Di, and I am the Group People and Culture Director of Edyn. So I head up HR. We really don't believe in calling it HR at Edyn. I know there's lots of clever ways that people can spin HR, human remains, etc. But we really believe in being a people-centric, human-centered business, hence why I'm Group People and Culture Director. And Edyn is a hospitality business. So we're service departments. Quite often feels like a hotel, but just you've got a lot more space for living upstairs. We have a number of different brands, and we're in the UK and Europe. Who else has died? Di is also a bit weird, talking in third person there.
Yeah, I think that might be the first time that's happened. So you're pioneering a new way of talking.
So I'm a mother of 2 little boys and a puppy. And my husband also works in HR, but he works in civil service, so very much a different world.
Yeah.
And
we don't need to talk about that.
Don't know.
No. We're here for bright and fluffy sectors today. This is what we're here to talk about. But I mean, this is I jest about that, but actually, it's a very serious business that we have, and I don't think people sometimes take hospitality seriously enough. Like, I mean, it's a proper investment. It's a proper, we have assets and buildings and people to move forward and all of these things, and especially what you guys are doing. I mean, since I've been aware of the group, which was introduced to me through Eric, in fact.
Mhm.
Somebody reached out to me to see if Eric would come on the show. That was way,
Mhm.
way, way back. It feels like you guys have not stopped.
Yeah, feels like that inside as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome company to work for because of the growth potential and the investment. So yeah, it's been really exciting, and it means that we have a chance to really shape something. Often you come in to a business which is already fully formed and you're just having to tweak things, whereas here we sort of almost had the ability to wipe the slate. And from my perspective, we all looked, Eric involved, everybody who you've spoken to previously was looking at how do we want to drive our culture? How do we want to grow as a business? Really consciously evolve our way of being and doing. And that's really special.
No doubt. And I suppose from your perspective as well, like a chance to form something and kind of evolve it as you evolve. I'd imagine that's a massive part of what you're doing as
Yeah.
well. Is really,
Yeah, so
really
I
interesting.
joined when we were called Seiko, which is just one of our brands, and that was the original brand that started in the 90s. So the company was called Seiko at the time. Seiko stands for Service Department Company because in the 90s, service departments weren't really a thing, so they had to call
Yeah.
it what it was.
Right.
And so I joined 6 years ago nearly to a company called Seiko, and I was the HR business partner. And actually, I'd just come off maternity leave and I was looking for a kind of nice little easy job
Oops.
with two little children based closer to home. I'd previously been in regional roles, and the growth was just has been amazing. And I, like you say, I've been able to grow. So I've grown from HR business partner. It was just me and one administrator, and I've been able to create a whole people and culture function to really help support the business's growth trajectory and our underlying purpose is soulful hospitality. So amazing opportunity for me to grow and to be able to grow people within the people and culture team on that journey too, as well as see lots of people grow across the business. Because
Mm,
even if you've been in the same role the whole time, you've had to grow so much to adjust to everything we're doing across the UK and Europe. So yeah, very, very exciting time. And you find here that you're just surrounded by people who have this passion for growth and learning and evolution. And that's why people join and that's why people stay.
yeah. No, no, absolutely. And I've been lucky enough to also have Paul on the
Yeah,
show, who is, I mean, a force of nature, I think, is probably the way to
100%.
summarize him.
So much energy.
Yeah, God, just if I had 10% of that, I feel like I'd
Mm.
get so much more done. But
Yeah.
in any case, no, I think fundamentally he's a really great guy as well. Like,
Mm.
I mean, I've no idea what he's like to work for, but my dealings with him have been, all action, but a human
Yeah.
at heart.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We work really hard to make sure that everybody who comes to work with us is on the journey and helps contribute to our culture as it evolves. And that is all about being people centric, human centric, 100% Paul. And we have some real baseline ethoses around always assuming good intent, which is really important for us. Because as you're growing so fast and you're figuring stuff out as you go, you're going to get things wrong and things are going to get a bit emotional at times. And so it's really important kind of to remember that the relationships are there and that no one's setting out to do the wrong thing. And that's the type of people that we seek to have within the business who are just
Mm,
brave enough to try something and kind of know that if it goes wrong, that's okay because we'll rally round and we'll learn from it.
yeah, I really love that. Like, as in focusing on this mentality that everybody is, whatever it is that they've done, whether it was something good, bad, or indifferent, they set out with a positive intention, and
Yeah.
that's your natural standpoint. As in, we expect that of them, but also that's the position that we adopt if something does go wrong. Is we're not going
Yeah.
to lambast somebody for that because actually they set out to just do something positive.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not, you can't evolve unless you're willing to make mistakes. You've got to have that brave sense of, I'm just going to try this. I think if you're always looking over your shoulder or worrying about the consequences if something goes wrong, you're never going to try something new. You're never going to ask questions or raise an idea. So it's not a culture that would be healthy for a company that's growing fast.
Yeah. Well, and what's that? There's a cliche, isn't there, around if you want ultimate success, double your fail rate or something like that. And
Yes, yeah, yeah. As long as it's not the same thing you keep failing,
no,
that would be
indeed.
silly.
Yes, that's a problem. Yes, perhaps then you need to have a discussion with that
Yeah.
individual. But yeah. Well, we'll come back to Edyn because
Mm,
I'm really interested to learn about where you're going as well and
mm,
what's next, etc., etc. But I also want to talk about. Well, actually, this is why you're here. We want to talk about you and your journey. Now, you very kindly said in the little form that I send out that we weren't sure you were qualified to come on the podcast.
yes.
You totally are. And the reason being is that I'm also as interested in your journey before hospitality, because it is kind of, we're only in this moment now. All roads lead
Mm,
here.
mm.
Those roads are very different for everyone. So take us all the way back to the beginning of your career. And what did you get into and what was the plan back then?
Well, like most people, I didn't really have a plan to start with, if I'm honest.
Yeah, big up to the non-planners. That's
I mean,
me
to
as
be
well.
honest, yeah, and I do think hospitality is wonderful for that. I have to say, there's, people who come and don't necessarily have a plan, and then the plan evolves and just opens up in front of them through hospitality. So I do think that's what's brilliant about hospitality.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so originally I didn't have a plan. I studied English at university because I had no idea what I wanted to do. So thought reading a few books would be fine. Um,
I'm going to make a career of reading books.
yeah, exactly. And then went traveling after uni because I still didn't know what to do. So ran out of money, came home and got a temp job in HR, which is actually where I met my husband because he was working in the office next door. So yeah, just actually fell into HR and then thought I better do something with the fact that I've got a degree. So started applying for grad schemes, knowing that I was in a temp job in HR. I thought, well, I may as well use that to my advantage. So I applied for HR grad schemes. So it was all kind of non-emotional at that point and just slightly more tactical around which jobs am I most likely to get.
Right. Well,
I didn't.
whatever works, right? I mean, but this is the thing. How old would you have been at this point? In your early 20s?
21, yeah.
Yeah. And but I've spoken about this so many times with so many different people around the kind of societal pressures of you must find your path and get on it and all of that sort of thing. But nobody talks about when you need to find that. And
Mm,
actually, early doors, life is for living, right? I mean, you've got to
yeah.
go and experience some stuff first before you can kind of, well, some of us do anyway, before you can kind of make up your mind what it is that you want to settle on.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, in this day and age, there isn't a career for life anymore. I think, in fact, people do about 3 careers, don't they? Different
Really?
careers during the
Oh,
time.
right.
And I think that actually relieves quite a lot of the burden. I think it's quite scary if you're a teenager being asked, what are you going to do? And you're suddenly having to commit to 40, 50 years ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very much, I do encourage people to just try different things. I think that makes sense. And then you learn as you go.
Yeah. Do you think because you travelled straight after uni, do you
Yeah.
think that helped or hindered you in any way, shape, or form because you kind of were in this mental flux at the time that you didn't really have a clue what you were to do, but travel is a great place to go when you've got to go figure it all out?
Yeah. So every summer in the summer holidays at uni, I went traveling every summer. So
Right?
I kind of just had it and then got under, got it under the skin a bit that I just carried on wanting to travel. And so I just had to sort of get it out of the system. So I'd work, funnily enough, I would work in a bar whilst I was at uni.
There you are,
And
you
then
see? Hospitality in the blood straight away. You didn't know it,
hospitality.
but
I
there we
was
are.
useless,
Yeah.
absolutely useless, by the way. So yeah, worked in a bar, and then every summer I would spend the whole summer traveling, went to Mexico, Thailand, and then so wanted to continue doing that before I thought about a job. So it was really getting it out of the system a little bit, although to be honest, I still have a massive long list of places that I'm gradually working through. It's just that we have to drag the children along with us now.
Yeah.
Um,
I love your
but
wording there.
I know it's quite literal.
Yeah, I can imagine actually. Yeah, why are we going here?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, but yes, for interestingly, people do point out again at Edyn that lots of people are passionate about travel and hospitality who work here, and there's definitely something in the blood about exploring different cultures and being interested in different people and the way that different people live. And I think that seems to be a common theme around people who work in hospitality. But not that I knew that at the time. I just love seeing the world. So the HR graduate scheme I managed to get onto was the ASDA HR graduate scheme up in Leeds. And I was very, very lucky. It was a brilliant scheme, 3-year scheme, rotations between sort of out in store and then across different departments like rewards, as well as development, funnily enough, graduate development. They wanted me to work on how to improve the grad scheme itself and recruitment as well. So incredible injection of all things HR. And so then it happened that I had worked in a supermarket, so a retail environment, very low cost supermarket environment. And so I just used that to leverage the next job again. And that tends to be what you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So stuck around in retail, but moved to wholesale. We both, me and my husband, fiance then, went up to Leeds, dragged him up there, a little bit cold, decided we didn't want to stay there because it's a bit cold. So when we got married, we moved back down south where our families are from. So I needed to look elsewhere. So went to wholesale, and then from there moved to Magnet, the kitchen company, which is still retail, but it's a sales environment really. So yeah, all of those though are people centric, and I wanted to try a different industry when I was thinking about moving on from Magnet, and I wanted an industry that was still fast paced, which retail is, and that was still very people centric and customer centric. Those are the bits that I really enjoyed and got energy from, which is why hospitality just made sense to me, really.
Yeah.
And it does. It ticks all those boxes.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you want fast paced.
Yeah.
You chose well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that come about? Because this is something that I've spoken about as well with a lot of people, and depending on who you speak to, very different thoughts on this. But this is one of the things for me that I think as an industry we've generally not been very good at in the past, which is opening our arms to other sectors. But then I've had conversations with people who said, oh no, we do that all the time. So I suppose it will always depend on the leadership with who's in play, etc., etc. And I can understand it, I suppose, to a certain extent, whereby some people are apprehensive because it is a fast pace. It's very unique. It has its own quirks and nuances and all of these things. But equally, when you're, I suppose, transferring somebody over from another sector, from a leadership-based position into another leadership-based position, it feels like that should flow in some ways because you're actually talking more strategic stuff now than perhaps on the floor day-to-day kind of stuff. But in your case, you moved over as an HR business partner, which is not, I suppose, at the level that you're at now. Or was it a case of the company was much smaller then, so it kind of is at the level you're at now? It's just that your role has expanded with the company.
So the business even then was very people centric, and engagement was key. And so I think they were open to looking for people who didn't have hospitality experience, as long as they had experience of working in people centric, fast paced environments. And I think that's always the case, that there are some companies, like you say, that are just determinedly looking for sector experience, and there are other companies that are looking for traits in somebody and experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly sector related. So potentially I was lucky or did a good job at persuading them that my experience was relatable.
Which it absolutely is.
Yeah, exactly. And funnily enough, actually, it's a view we take generally here, because we sort of see ourselves as a bit different to your traditional hospitality business. So it doesn't make sense always to hire people from traditional hospitality businesses. Now, there are some absolute gems, and we will absolutely welcome them in.
Yeah.
But we will also look more broadly, and we have done since I've been here, because again, we're looking for those traits and those characteristics as well as skill set, but quite a lot of that can be transferable. And we do bring on people from retail as well as from some manufacturing backgrounds as well. So it's quite broad, as long as they're hitting the mark on the areas that are really key to us.
Yeah.
Now, funnily enough, because of the pandemic and the struggles with hiring, what was a bit different about the way that we recruited previously is now what everyone's doing, because they've got no choice.
Yeah.
Having to widen the net. It's a bit
Yes.
annoying, because I'm like, well, this is what we've always been doing, but now everyone's doing it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have to look beyond your own sphere if you're going to drive change and do things differently.
Yeah, and you guys absolutely are doing that. And I think the one thing I always remember when I took my first general management brief from you, and I was like, oh, that's not normal.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way, though, because it's
Yeah.
what I loved about that, and I don't know whether you still do this, but the emphasis on your general managers is actually, it's not to get bogged down so much in the kind of P&L and the business
Yeah.
part of it that way, but it's to do everything that makes your guests and your team's experience as excellent as possible.
Yeah, 100%. And we often talk actually about whether we should change the title of general manager, because it isn't what it says on the tin versus what general managers do in hotels. And yeah, it's that we've actually found it harder, ironically, when we do hire general managers from hotels, they're a bit sometimes shocked that we're asking them to not worry about the P&L, like you say. So sometimes it works better to get people who haven't been in such a prescriptive role before, because they adapt much quicker to a fresh approach.
Yeah. And I suppose you've had to do that through the business. If you guys are change makers, so you're almost reinventing structures and the way a team makeup is, and all of these things that come together with making change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've really grown a lot of people internally, particularly in the operations, but across the business. As I've got plenty of people who have grown within my team and across the other central functions too. It's great to help people grow, and I think once they've got their head round us and the way we work, it makes sense to grow them. There are some roles where you need a specialist of tax, for example. You're just going to have to bring in that specialist, because you can't grow it quickly from within. But in the long run, hopefully all roles will be able to do that and build pathways that way too. I still question whether people, are people really going to commit to a lifetime of working in one business, or do we just accept that people will always move around, and if we can keep another 6 months and then another 6 months with them, great, but not be too upset if people choose to move on, because that's just part of their own evolution.
Yeah, I think that's such a critical mindset to have, though, in any form. And speak to 100 different people within the realm of people and culture, and actually, if it's somebody's time to fly, and you can no longer give them the wings that they need, then just you have to let them go. But let them go well. With blessings, and don't try to just throw money at them to try and keep them, or whatever. If you can genuinely add value to where they want to get to, then do it, but don't force it, because ultimately that puts everything out of balance, and then ultimately that person's experience of you leaving is possibly a more negative one, and they don't want to come back.
Yeah, or just, when people do change their mind, choose to stay, you often find that in 6 months, 12 months, they move on anyway, because there is a mindset shift. I think once you've made that decision, it's a bit like ending a relationship. It's quite hard to go back, isn't it? And I think people do need to just go and spread their wings, try something else. We do work hard to keep in contact with our alumni, because there may be opportunities in the future. They've grown, we've grown, and maybe there's a role that they can come back to. So that's important. And we do have people coming back from time to time, and that's lovely. But yeah, I think you just got to be flexible, haven't you?
Yeah, it's the word of the moment, isn't it, really? Because what choice do you have?
I know, that's the thing. I think people have been forced into being flexible at the moment. It's whether that's a choice or whether they just feel they've got no other choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are you finding it? I don't want to make this too business commentary, as it were, but how are you finding life with people at the moment in terms of, everybody, anywhere you look, the words are staffing crisis, staffing crisis, staffing crisis. How is
Yeah.
that? How does that look for you guys at the moment? Are you also finding that, or how are you finding it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not all flowers and roses. The word crisis, personally, I don't really agree with, if I'm honest with you, Phil,
Yeah,
because a crisis is something that's unseen, and we've known there are going to be labour shortages for so long. We could see it coming with Brexit, and I was meeting with peers pre-Brexit, and we were all sharing our plans on how we were going to adjust. For example, at Edyn, we now sponsor people, and we set that up before Brexit occurred. So we're always aware that there were going to be labour shortages coming down the tracks,
yeah,
and that was okay. So the pandemic sort of changed the focus for a period, but I think we're just operating in a world. When you look at unemployment rates, it's just even though we're moving into a recession, we're coming from such a low base with unemployment rates, and it's not just the UK, it's Europe, it's global,
yeah,
that we're always going to be faced with this challenge. So I think we really need to think differently about our labour models and the labour market. Otherwise, we're going to be permanently thinking we're in a state of crisis, which actually is just a state of operating.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is not a crisis. This is
This
life.
is life.
Yeah. No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, and this is the thing for me is that having, I suppose, operating on the fringes and seeing things in many different companies and the way that people are handling the scenario, is that in the pandemic we had this kind of mindset of like everybody was able to just stop. I know you guys weren't actually able to stop because you were still open. You had
You were
long
lucky.
term
Yeah.
guests and things like that. So,
Yeah.
but a lot of people had, I suppose, it was a circuit breaker to the business to be able to think, okay, right, this is not going to work going forward. So let's make sure that we're doing X, Y, Z better. And then
Mm,
everything reopened again, and everybody just got mentally busy again. And it was a case of, okay,
mm,
yeah, we'll get to that. But we can't wait to get to
yeah.
it. It's here. It's now.
Yeah.
If you're not dealing with it head on, then you're just going to be in this perpetual state of
Exactly.
firefighting.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I 100% agree. I think we need to stop just blaming a crisis for where we are, and just actually look into the future and adapt and move forward.
Yeah,
And so we really need to think about the labour model and how we just change our relationship with work, I think. And the importance there is building out what we mean by meaningful work for our people, and looking at where we really do need to have people working, or where we rely more on tech and automation to mean that when we do have people working for us, their jobs are genuinely impactful and meaningful and interesting. And then that's how you can really retain people, and you can make sure that their comp and bends reflects the work they're doing.
yeah,
So yeah, it's an interesting one to work through, as well as this desire for flexibility. And I think that's another one of the different ways that people come to work, whether it's contract or it's part-time, full-time. We just need to embrace the flexibility of how people are coming to us and make that as easy as possible, and recognize that actually we really need to make ourselves as attractive as possible. You can't still keep in that mindset of, we're making the decisions on who's going to
yeah,
come work for us. But actually it's always going to be in the hands of the worker or the employee. But let's leverage that. And if we can gain a strong enough reputation, then everyone's going to want to come work for us anyway,
yeah.
because we are who we say we are.
Yeah, I think that's massively important. I've mentioned the words "look after your own house" on this
Mm,
podcast many times around the fact that there's a lot of noise outside for sure, but
mhm.
actually, if you just focus on you and what you guys can and cannot do, and rather than trying to get the workforce to mold into you, is that there has to be kind of a coming together of that,
Yeah.
and that's it. Simple. There we are. solved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Easy peasy.
Yeah. Next.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting one to work through. Funnily enough, because we did review our culture, and we asked everyone within the business, what do you want to protect and nurture as we grow? What bits do we want to own or not own? We spent quite a lot of time making sure that we were who we thought we were, and have only really in the last couple of years started trying to externalize that. So it's really important to me that we weren't presenting a false image about what Edyn was, and we're always really clear about selling ourselves warts and all, because it isn't all sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
It is hard work. So yeah, I think we probably need to get a little bit better now, if I'm honest, at really portraying ourselves externally. It's always, people always say, gosh, this is like the best kept secret, work, Edyn. And you go, that's really nice to hear, but it's also kind of disappointing.
Yeah. It took
so
you to come in to learn that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's one of the big saviors, is that everybody's talking about marketing, because
Yeah.
ultimately that's exactly what you've just said, is that companies spend a lot of time marketing to bring guests in, but do they spend the same amount of money to bring and really fully form why somebody should come and work for you in a way that speaks to people, that makes them go, yeah, well, I definitely want to go and check them out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you are running a model of, you're almost getting the workforce to mold into you in a nice way, not a forced way.
They're saying, I want to work in a company like that, or I don't. I want to go and work for the civil service. Absolutely fine. You go ahead then, So I think that is really important. Yeah, so I mean, we've got a head of talent attraction. So again, we haven't got recruitment managers here, but it's all around talent attraction for that very purpose, about how we're presenting ourselves externally. And Nick works really closely with our marketing team, because there's a really strong link between the two.
Yeah.
And Edyn is our employer brand, it's our investor brand. But obviously then we have our kind of product brands, if you like, which are Lock, Seiko and Cove. But yeah, Edyn is very much for our employees and to help attract talent.
Great stuff. Well, back to you. Back to your story.
So I keep dodging it.
No, indeed. Well, this is you said that you're unqualified. You're doing a damn good job, to be honest. So not unqualified at all. This is the thing for me about the joy of running this podcast and the people that I get to speak to is that I could probably do this until the end of time and not come across the same story, as to how somebody got somewhere. A smaller handful of people who knew exactly what they wanted to do at the age of 15, and the rest, you're talking about 1 or 2% of the people. The rest of us didn't have a clue, and it is absolutely one of the joys of hospitality, is that it has no barriers to entry, really, in that respect, in the sense that you can join us at any time you like.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll always have a lot of fun whilst you're working in hospitality. You'll always build lots of relationships. And I think actually that's the one major difference between retail and hospitality, is that the community within hospitality feels a lot stronger, in my opinion. So when you go to the events and the awards, everyone knows everyone in hospitality, and there's always a real interest in every time a new hotel opens or a new restaurant opens. People want to know about it. They want to go and meet the GMs and try it out for themselves. It's a bit different in retail. People aren't so interested when there are new openings. They tend to be more relationship driven within their own organization, but not cross-organizational. Right. So that there's a much stronger sense of community, I think, within hospitality.
Yeah, but I think that's probably a sense of this word that I've heard used before, co-opetition. So everybody else makes everybody else stronger, because if something brings something new to the marketplace, everybody goes, "Ooh, what's that?" And they'll go, because we're also all consumers of hospitality. Yeah. Whatever it is that you do in your life, we all consume hospitality. So if there's a new hotel opening, you want to go and check it out. You want to go and see what they're doing differently. You want to what's their smell profile, which is a thing that
Yes.
I learned about this year. I didn't
Yeah.
realise that hotels had smell profiles, but there we
Oh
are.
God, 100%. We're big
Yeah,
into that.
yeah. But there's also this kind of, like, if you're a front office manager in one place and a front office manager in another place, and you know each other from previous, and it's just a question of, well, we're opening next week. Come in and have a look. I'll give you a tour.
Yeah.
And there's just this open arms kind
Mm.
of approach to competition,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
which I really, really love. I think, and because everybody keeps driving to be better, is
Mm.
that it just keeps everyone elevating,
Yeah, I agree. It's quite interesting from an HR perspective. So I do think that hospitality is a little bit behind the curve sometimes in our approaches to HR.
right?
But there's still that view of, everyone works together and shares so openly their ideas and what they're working on to progress. It's
Mm,
just that we're coming from quite a low base on things like diversity and inclusion, for example. So yeah, I'm often surprised at why hospitality is a little bit behind the times when there is this collegiate approach to idea sharing.
yeah,
But we'll get there,
yeah. It's because everybody's busy. That's what it is.
probably.
Yeah. Great stuff. So you're 6 years in the company now.
Coming up, yeah.
Yeah. What's next? What's on the horizon for you guys?
Well, we're still opening. We've still got Berlin to open next year, Zurich next year, and Kensington in London. And then there's more coming down the tracks. I think that's the beauty of working at Edyn, with having the development team, so Eric's team, linked directly with the operating team, is that you see far out these properties and can get so excited. We've got this amazing property in Lisbon, just converted convent, and to already hear the kind of archaeological digs, the stories of this from the development team is just so exciting.
Wow.
And
Yes.
it's great as well, actually, I have to say, from a talent attraction perspective.
Yeah. Well, you can build a story around that, can't you?
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly. So yeah, so still plenty to open, and there's some new countries in there. So Switzerland is new to us. So we're just getting. I've got a head of people and culture in Europe, and Paul Christina's just getting a head round Switzerland. So plenty to keep us busy, and that's effectively what we'll do is we'll continue to grow, probably deepening where we already are
Yeah.
across Europe, and then the sky's the limit really. Do we eventually end up expanding into different continents? I hope so. So yeah, just ongoing promise of growth here.
Yeah. Great. Well, I mean, I will continue to watch with wide eyes at how quickly you guys move and operate and grow. But clearly there's demand for what you're doing, and
Yeah.
it's not just from the people perspective that you're mixing things up. You're mixing things up as to what people should expect when they come and stay in one of your properties, which experience is what it's all about ultimately.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's our purpose of Soulful Hospitality is for our guests, it's for our people, it's for everyone. And I think that's the thing. It's that our guests should be on the same level as our people, and you really feel that when you walk into a property, that everybody is joining a community, whether they're choosing to work in the co-working, they're eating in the restaurant, or they're staying there, or they're working there, and that there's this real community sense. And that's what makes it so exciting working here.
Yeah, great. Well, it's very exciting times ahead. Before I let you go, one question I love to ask everybody is, do you have any stories from your time in hospitality that you can share with us?
Oh, do you know, I've been racking my brains on this because, as you can imagine, I have lots of stories from a people perspective that I'm not able to share.
No, well, yes, might be a touch
And
litigious, yes.
they're equally terrifying and hilarious usually. But I'm not able to share any of them, which is always disappointing. And so I'm trying to think of any that I know third hand. I've just not got anything good that I can really share story wise. I mean, just from my own personal experience, the thing that always still sticks in me, my worst experience of hospitality was probably when I was backpacking. It was when I was in Australia. We had to sleep in an 18-bed dorm. Can you imagine that? Sleeping in a room with another 17
I don't need to
people.
imagine that. I have done that in my life. It's not something I would do now, but for
No,
sure. Yes.
mainly very drunk people usually as well, which you never want to be on the bunk below a drunk male.
Oh, crikey. So it was mixed in that respect as
Yeah,
well. Ah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't done that. It was male and female
Yeah.
dorms when I did it. I remember we arrived. This was in Carlisle, of all places.
Gosh.
It's not exactly travel extraordinaire, is it? But the two things that I remember from that, we were doing a school trip from my school in the Western Isles of Scotland down to Cambridge, and
Hmm.
it was a kind of work experience trip. We were going to have a look at hotels. We were going to look at vineyards. We were going to look at kind of lots of industry
Nice.
stuff to entice people as to what you might want to do as a career, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And we stopped halfway at Carlisle on the way over in this dormitory, this hostel, and we arrived very, very late. And I couldn't find any beds. It was the last one in. I couldn't find a bed, but then I did find one, and I took it, only to then hear about an hour later somebody come back and say, "Somebody's nicked my bed."
Oh no.
Yeah, and I was like, ah. But thankfully they were polite enough not to wake me up. Or I mean, I was
Oh,
pretending to be
wow.
asleep, but I was like thinking,
Yeah.
am I going to get murdered in this bed right now because somebody needs to sleep? But yeah, they're interesting spaces for sure.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's a very early form of some sort of communal living, isn't it? But
Yeah,
yeah. Very pleased not having to do that now when we travel. Although the issue now, you see, is that 'cause obviously we get to try out our new openings before guests come to stay.
of course. Yeah,
So my two little boys are thoroughly spoilt. They think that all hotels are brand new, never been slept in before. And they think that hotels always come with 2 bedrooms in a room and, a lounge and a kitchen. They think that's standard. So if they ever stay in a Premier Inn, they're going to be very shocked.
somewhat shocked. Yes. Yes, not to talk down about Premier Inn, but
No,
they
no.
have facilitated many an overnight stay somewhere. But actually,
Yeah.
they were change makers of their time in the last
Mm.
downturn. They went because their brand was ruined beforehand. I don't think it was Premier Inn; it was Premier Travel Inn, I think it was.
Okay.
And in the last financial downturn in 2008-9, they just went back to basics. They just what do people need if they come here? They want a
Yeah.
comfortable bed, and so they
Yeah.
pumped their focus into the bed,
Mm.
and it's
Makes total sense.
absolute dividends. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Simplicity is definitely key, I think, and always going back to what the guest wants. Because ultimately, they do pay our wages, don't they?
Yeah,
So,
indeed. Final question before I let you go. What 3 reasons would you give for somebody to come and start a career in hospitality?
yeah. So, community, the opportunities, and the fun.
Which we kind of covered, I think, across our chat in many ways. So that's a lovely conclusion, actually. In conclusion, you should join hospitality because of what we just said for the last 45 minutes. Great stuff. Well, I will continue to watch what you guys with, as I said, with wide eyes. I think what you're doing
Thank
is
you.
fantastic. And you've got some really, really dynamite people in your organization
Mm.
at the moment. So yeah, I wish
Yeah.
you guys all
Very
the
lucky.
best for the future and beyond. What's beyond the future,
Thank
Phil?
you.
Nothing. Yeah, but there we are. Anyway, thanks, Di.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
And there we have it, yet another cracking career story, and with this one I hope we demonstrated that it really doesn't matter at what point you find hospitality. You can still have a blast at whatever level you join. I'll be back again next week with more stories from hospitality, but until then, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.